On today's episode, it's the second part of the simple cabinet construction, and that went together really simple because it was simple. I mean, it's really simple. That's why we called it simple, because it was so simple. It was scary simple, to be quite honest with you.
Welcome back to Matt's Basement Workshop. Sponsored by
Microjig, maker of the gripper. Work safer, work smarter.
And by Centipede Tool, manufacturer of the Centipede Portable Work System, the ultimate in portable work support. For more information, visit centipedetool.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Matt's Basement Workshop. So as you can see behind me, we have completed the simple cabinet construction. And in today's episode, we're going to go over the final components that we need to wrap this whole entire thing up. And that includes doing the face frame here, and then of course actually constructing the doors themselves. And staying with that theme, these actually are very, very simple using the tools that we already have in the basement workshop. And quite honestly, if you were to pick up these tools for yourself, while there's a little bit of an initial investment in it, if you were to make a whole series of these, it would pay off rather quickly. Now, I do want to point out that this is not the actual area where they're going to be installed. I'm out in my garage, and I want to get a test fit just to make sure that everything's going to line together the right way. So that's why we're out here. I will, at some point, try to get some photos of them actually installed in their final location, but for right now, this is going to do the best for us at the moment. But anyway, so let's go ahead and jump right in and start talking about this face frame construction because, again, it was really super simple. So for the face frame itself, again, staying with this whole theme of simple construction, I had already pre-milled the components, so we ripped them to width, we went ahead and cross-cut them to length, and we assembled it just using our Craig pocket hole joinery system. It is really, really easy to do this. I don't have to worry about coming in here and creating mortise and tenons or any other type of joinery. As you can see, we just put this on our Craig jig. We drilled the holes at one end. Once that was completed, we just flipped it over and drilled them on the opposite end. And then once we had all of our holes drilled, what we ended up doing then was coming back in and assembling it. And again, this was really super simple using just a simple Craig clamp. And in fact, to help me kind of line things up right down here, as you can see in this footage, I took a piece of scrap and I actually butted that joint together to make sure that everything lined up just the right way. And that helped to make sure that once I had the clamp in position and drove that first screw into place, it was all set. So once we had that first one taken care of, we'll go ahead and start assembling it at the other corners. Now that we have that done, the last thing we need to do is to go ahead and attach this middle divider here. And this goes together just as easily. In fact, what I did was, on the back side where the pocket hole joints were going to be, I went ahead and figured out what the center was for the middle divider, left a mark on that, and then I divided here in the center. I left another mark on the face frame, brought those together, made sure the marks lined up, and then I went ahead and just simply attached it. And as you can see, we now have our face frame all taken care of here. And again, to attach the face frame to the rest of the cabinet, we're just going to simply do some more pocket hole joints here. Now, I know some people will be thinking, but doesn't that make it kind of ugly? Aren't you worried about the aesthetics of it? Well, quite honestly, if I were to, say, have the outside of this cabinet being the show face for some reason, say it's the end of the cabinet, this is the end of the line, and you would be looking from this outside here, I would more than likely drill my pocket holes on the inside. But in this situation, I know for a fact that this whole run of cabinets is going to be tucked into like a little alcove area, so nobody is really going to be seeing these outside pieces. So in that scenario, I went ahead and I drilled the pocket holes on the outside of the cabinet, and that's what I used. I have like a couple on each side and then one on top and one on the bottom, and that's what I used to attach the face frame, so it gives it a very nice clean look on the inside, and it works out perfectly fine all around for what we need to do here. So now that we have the face frame attached, let's go ahead and we're going to turn our attention to the doors, which again, this is, again, sticking with that whole simple construction theme. It's going to go together really, really quick and rather easily. So for the doors, we're using a very basic frame and panel construction. And in this case, the panel itself is actually 1/2-inch plywood that is kind of, for the lack of a better description, trapped within this frame right here. So we'll talk about the panel itself in just one second, but first let's talk about the construction of the frame. Now, to create the frame, we're using a rail and style set that was featured years ago in one of the Router Bit of the Month episodes that we have, and this is a white side rail and style set, and it has this nice little kind of ogee in here. And as you can see in the picture, this is one part of the actual rail and style set. In fact, what we ended up doing first was creating this profile, which not only gives us this nice little, an ogee here, but it also creates the groove that the panel itself is going to fit in. And we did that on all 4 pieces for each one of the doors. So once we had that kind of raised to the right height, we went ahead and did this on our router table because it's the safest place to use this type of router bit set. We went through and created, again, all of the stick pieces that we have here for the actual frame itself. Once we were done with that, it was then time to come in, and for each one of these style pieces here, I always get rail and style mixed up, which one it is. These are the actual rails themselves. That's what it is. Or they could be styles. Regardless, when it comes time to create the mating joint, which will be here at each end, we swapped out the bit, and we now have another one which is going to come in, and it's actually going to create a tongue on the end, and it's also simultaneously going to create a negative profile that will fit this ogee right here. This takes a little while to kind of set up. You really have to do some nice test fits with this. Don't rush it. Make sure that you have some plenty of stock that's the same exact thickness on hand, and it may take 2, 3, 4 times to do it. I know for myself this was easily a half dozen before I was able to dial it in and get the exact fit that I want, because I really want to make sure that when I have this all taken care of, when it comes together, there's very little fussing that I want to do right here. I want it to be as perfectly flat with each other as possible. So anyways, once I have that dialed in, and again, we're using this at the router table, I went ahead and started to make the final joint that I need here on each one of these. Now, when it comes to using either one of these joints, especially that second one right here where we're kind of creating this final joint to bring it together, make sure to avoid tear out. You have some sort of backer board that's really going to help you to control any blowout here on the back side, because the last thing you want to do is get a really nice fit, but then suddenly have like something really crappy down here. But anyway, so we got a really good result with that, and everything came together really, really nicely. So for the panel itself, again, we're using 1/2-inch plywood in here. And on the back side, we'll try and get a really good look at this. Here, it actually sits a little bit proud of the rest of this. I probably could have easily used just something like 1/4-inch plywood, because really that's what that groove that it creates, the 1/4-inch plywood fit in that perfectly, but I wanted to give it a little bit more rigidity. So that's why I ended up going with the 1/2-inch thick plywood. But in order to do that, I need to create a rabbet on all edges. So I grabbed my rabbeting bit, and normally I would do this with, say, a dado blade, but in this scenario, I think I was already at the router table. It was really easy for me to go ahead and set it up, so I got that all taken care of. And then once that was done, it was a matter of just kind of doing a dry fit to make sure everything came together. But I didn't assemble the door at that point. In fact, what I ended up doing, and you can see this in this picture right here, is I went through and I painted the actual panel itself. Now, my main reason for doing that is, of course, wood movement. We want to try and minimize wood movement as much as possible, and a frame and panel construction does a really great job of minimizing any of the wood movement, but it doesn't absolutely eliminate it. So my concern was, if I went ahead and assembled all of this together and then I painted it, well, right now, this time of year, as we're recording this, we are having a lot of humidity, so things are swelling like crazy. As a result, in the winter, as it starts to dry and things start to contract, what would end up happening is I could potentially have some unpainted areas showing up in the panel itself, and it's not in my house, it's going to be in somebody else's house, so I don't want to have to come out and make a rescue visit to go ahead and clean it up. So in that scenario, or to avoid that scenario is what I should say, I went ahead and I painted the whole entire panel before I did the assembly. So I painted it on both sides to make sure that I was well covered, and then after that is when I went ahead and did the actual assembly itself and glued everything up, and it went together really easy, because the nice thing about it is if I paid attention while I was routing these joints are going to square themselves up really nicely, and that's exactly what they did. So as you're looking at this picture, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute, there's a little bit of a hang-off here. You didn't go ahead and assemble this the right way. It's not cut to the actual length. And that's right. I did leave the longer pieces here much longer than I normally would, but my reason for doing that was when I glued this up, and again, knowing that if I did this joint the right way, it's going to go ahead and self-square. The main reason for that was then, and as you can see here, we brought in our crosscut sled, and we started to square things up that way. So I came in, loaded up the crosscut sled, made my crosscut here, and what it's going to do is it might take off just a little bit on these rail pieces here at the top and the bottom, but it gives me a really nicely squared door, and as long as I pay attention to make sure I've got everything just the right way, they're all going to turn out exactly the same. So we went ahead and did that on the first side, getting rid of what is commonly referred to as these little horns at the bottom. Once the first set were all taken care of, I struck a line on the crosscut sled, and I made sure to take this first side that was already squared up, and I bumped it right up against it, and then I went ahead and cross-cut the other end. And as a result, all of my doors are exactly at the same dimension, and they are perfectly squared up, and they look absolutely great. So at this point, we were pretty much done. All I needed to do was to come out here and out in the garage and paint the actual pieces themselves. So we painted the face frames, we painted the inside of the boxes, we went ahead and we painted the actual doors themselves. And as you can see, well, we have our final pieces right here. We've got the matching hardware, we've got the knobs in place. We're pretty much ready for installation. And that's all there really is to this simple cabinet construction. I mean, the name really does say it all. And to be honest with you, I was a little skeptical going into it. I thought I was going to run into a few issues here and there. But I think the construction technique that we ended up using this, especially for the boxes, means it's going to be super rigid. And of course, once we get the face frames in place, it's going to add even more rigidity to it. Now, one thing I will say, this was a comment that came in after we put the first video up, and it was in regards to the attachment of this the backer boards in here. And in fact, that they suggested from previous experience, and I'm sorry I don't have your name up right now, maybe we'll flash this up on the video. I probably really should have attached the bottoms and even the top to these backer boards to help add a little extra rigidity. They made a great point about the fact that if you don't actually have them attached in some way, once things start getting put into here, these could potentially kind of bow a little bit, and we don't want that to happen either. So I have actually gone through, and on the back side, I, again, using pocket hole joinery, created a little pocket that kind of came down and attached them, so I feel even more confident than ever about the boxes themselves. So thank you so much for that tip, and I really, really appreciate it. But again, really, we're all set here. The only thing I had left to do, and I've already done it quite obviously, is attach the hardware itself. And as tends to happen when it comes to putting knobs in place, I probably should have put these up just a little bit higher. I'm anticipating that, at least for me, since I'm so short, I'm going to have to reach up a little bit, or whoever's me is going to have to reach up and grab them. So that's why I was thinking that I would end up putting them as low as I did here. But quite honestly, I think they would have looked better if I would have just raised them up a little bit. But you know what? That's one of those weird things about when it comes to hard and fast rules for cabinetry and even for hinges and stuff. I know there's some out there, but we tend to kind of neglect them, or at least I do. I should definitely learn from that. But I think it still looks really good. Anyways, though, if you have comments, questions, suggestions, I love hearing from all of you. You know how to get a hold of me. You can email me at mattsbasementworkshop@gmail.com. And, of course, if you are watching this on the website, you are welcome to leave a comment over there. I love hearing from all of you. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment over there where I've gotten some great advice so far. But, again, this was a really great project. And now that I have them up in the garage, I'm starting to think, we need some of our own, so maybe I'm going to have to come back in and actually create some for the Vanderlist household, because these look, I really like them. Maybe I should just give the clients their money back, or maybe not. I don't want to go that far. Anyways, though, regardless, thanks so much for stopping in. I really appreciate it. And until the next time, straight grains and sharp blades. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for watching. For more information on topics discussed in this episode, visit mattsbasementworkshop.com.